You kept asking for a sign, for an answer, for a way out. But nothing came, only pain and silence. Every time you opened your eyes, the world felt heavier. Every time you tried to breathe, something choked your spirit. You tried, you waited, you broke, but you didn't give up. That's why this is a shocking message from but as the pain. If most people run from pain, you didn't. You stood in the fire, so you didn't scream for rescue. You learned how to walk through it. There were nights when your hands were shaking and your mind was screaming, but you showed up again, quietly, consistently, alone. And that was not failure, that was transformation. You thought the pain was punishment. But what if it wasn't? What if it was the exact opposite? What if it was preparation, not to destroy you, but to build you into someone who couldn't be broken again? What if pain was the tool, the test, the teacher? When nothing moves in your life, that's when you're being moved inside. Growth doesn't make noise. It doesn't come with applause or recognition. It comes in the hidden places when you're left alone to face your own mind, your own habits, your own reflection. This is where the real work happens. And you did it. That's why this moment is not ordinary. This is not just another day. So this is a shocking message from God. You passed the pain. You endured what would have made others quit. That's not by chance. That's not a coincidence. It's proof you didn't skip the lesson. You stayed through the process. And pain didn't make you bitter. It made you clearer, stronger, sharper. You know how to move through storms now. You know how to breathe when life tightens around your chest. You know how to keep walking when the path disappears. There's a part of you that woke up through that suffering. That part of you is now alive. That part of you cannot be taught in books. It cannot be bought. It cannot be stolen. It is earned in dark nights, earned in silence, earned in pain. And that's why you're now ready to hear it. You passed the pain. Now comes the shift, not because someone chose you, but because you chose not to quit. There is power in endurance, power in surviving when everything told you to stop. You earned what's coming, not because you begged for it, but because you became the person capable of holding it. This is not about a reward. It's about readiness. The pain you carried was not senseless. It was not wasted. It trained you. Every moment you felt like breaking, something inside was being rebuilt. Without you even realizing it, your patience grew. Your perspective shifted. Your vision cleared. Your mind became calm under pressure. Your spirit learned to stand without support. That is evolution. That is inner mastery. The world tries to convince you that strength comes from force, from domination, from control. But the real strength, it comes quietly. It grows when no one sees. It sharpens when you're alone. And then one day, this day, it reveals itself in your silence, in your clarity, in your unshakable presence. That's what this moment means. That's what this shocking message from God means. You passed the pain. Now everything changes. But don't expect a parade. Don't expect fireworks. Expect responsibility. Expect deeper lessons. Expect life to place weight on your shoulders again, because now it knows you can carry more. This isn't a happy ending. This is the beginning of a new test, a higher one. But this time you're not the same. You know who you are now. You're not someone who needs to be rescued anymore. You're someone who learns, who adapts, who transforms. You've built something inside that nothing can shake. That's the message. That's the point. You were never being broken. You were being rebuilt. This message isn't soft. It isn't comforting. It's direct. It's for the one who survived the storm, who asked why for too long, and who now needs to hear it wasn't for nothing. The delay, the silence, the heartbreak, it was refining you. For what? For this, for now, for the shift. You passed the pain. So watch what happens next. Don't doubt the process. You didn't come this far to stop here. Everything behind you was training. Everything ahead of you is calling. And now you are finally ready to answer it. There are moments in life when everything goes quiet. You pray and there's no answer. You cry and no one hears. You break and no one shows up. The silence gets louder. You begin to wonder, does anyone see me? But that silence was the test. And whether you realize it or not, this is this shocking message from God. You passed the pain. People expect signs to come loud. They wait for miracles to arrive in flashes of light. But the most powerful confirmations come quietly, through nothingness, through waiting, through emptiness. You kept going when there was no sound, no applause, no light. That is the test most fail. But you didn't. The pain was hard, yes, but the silence, that was brutal. Not knowing what was next, not understanding why things kept falling apart. Still, you stayed. You walked through the fire and refused to scream. You kept your feet moving when your heart wanted to collapse. That's the kind of strength that doesn't look glamorous, but it's rare and it's real. No one talks about the day when you feel forgotten, when everything is dark and nothing changes, when you do all the right things, but the doors stay shut. You weren't lazy, you weren't weak, you were being observed, watched in the invisible, judged not by the world, but by the divine. You were being asked, will you still walk when no one sees you? Will you still rise when no one claps? Will you still believe when everything screams no? And you did. That's why today carries power. This is not just another morning. This is the shocking message from God. You passed the pain. You passed the test of silence, of hidden battles, of invisible endurance. Most people wait for perfect conditions before they act. You acted with nothing. You made decisions while confused. You moved forward while bleeding. You stayed committed even when you didn't understand the lesson. That is rare. That is what makes you different. The silence was never a rejection. It was a mirror to show you what lives inside you when no one is watching, and what lived in you: discipline, endurance, faith, stillness, strength. Not the kind you talk about, the kind that builds empires inside you. You're not being rewarded because you begged. You're being elevated because you proved. The time for questioning is over. The shift has already begun. Doors will open. Energy will return. Life will accelerate. But not because something changed around you, because something changed within you. All the moments you felt forgotten, those were the sharpening. All the nights you wanted to give up, those were the shaping. All the times you thought it was over, it was just the beginning. You were becoming solid, quiet, unshakable. That's what makes this moment so powerful. This isn't just hope, this is confirmation. The silence didn't mean absence. It meant preparation. You don't train warriors on the battlefield. You train them in solitude. You train them in silence. You train them by taking away comfort, clarity, and noise, so that when the moment comes, they don't shake. And now it's your moment. But be clear, this isn't about ease. This isn't about everything becoming simple. It's about you finally understanding that you're not waiting for the world to change. The world was waiting for you to wake up, to realize you are no longer the person who cries for rescue. You've become the one who moves forward without needing proof. This is the shocking message from God. You passed the pain dust. So now the silence will break. The storm will shift. The results will come, but not to save you, to match you. Because now you are the match for the future you once prayed for. You passed the test of delay. You passed the test of being unseen. You passed the test of walking in the dark. What else can stop you now? Every time you said, I'll keep going, you were rewriting your path. Every time you stood up without knowing how, you were becoming unshakable. You didn't just survive pain, you learned to use it. That's the difference. That's the message. And now life responds differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You speak differently. You walk differently. You breathe differently. Pain taught you silence. Silence taught you control. And control taught you presence. So now when things happen, you don't panic. You've already faced yourself. You've already sat in the dark. You've already watched everything fall apart. And still, here you are. That's power. That's alignment. That's why the message is clear. You passed the pain. Watch what happens next. You waited for change, for a moment, for a sign, for something to finally move. But it didn't come when you expected. It didn't show up when you were desperate. It came after you broke, after you bought, after you let go of needing it. And now it's here. This is the shocking message from God. You passed the pain. That's why things are finally shifting. Change doesn't arrive when you're crying for it. So it doesn't happen in your comfort. It comes when you're empty, when you've released your ego, when you're no longer trying to control what's next. That's when it hits, not gently, but with force. Because something inside you has been reborn. The shift never begins in the good times. The shift starts in silence, in chaos, in darkness. And most people miss it because they're still focused on escaping the pain. But you didn't run, you didn't complain, you endured. And that's why this moment is different. That's why you can feel something rising, something moving. Because something is, you passed the stage of begging. You passed the stage of questioning. You passed the stage of waiting for the world to save you. So that's what makes this real. You're not hoping anymore. You're knowing. You feel the shift not because you're imagining it, but because you earned it. There was a point where everything felt heavy, where nothing made sense, where even waking up felt like a task, but you still did it. You still walked quietly, without applause, without answers. You built something in that silence that most people will never understand. You built resilience, discipline, stillness. And that's why the shift is now. This is not random. This is not a coincidence. This is a shocking message from God. You passed the pain. And now that the struggle has done its job, life begins to respond to your new energy. You're no longer vibrating at survival. You're vibrating at power, at clarity, at readiness. Before, the pain was keeping you grounded. Now, the clarity is lifting you. Before, life was testing your patience. Now, life is watching what you do with strength, and it's not about ease. So, it's not about everything becoming perfect. It's about finally realizing that the version of you who suffered is not the version that moves forward. You're not who you were. Pain reshaped you. Silence trained you. You lost parts of yourself. But what's left is pure, sharper, real. You stopped chasing noise. You stopped needing external approval. You stopped searching for answers outside yourself. That's growth. That's power. And now, it's beginning, the shift you prayed for. But here's the truth. It's not because of luck. It's because of change. You changed. That's why everything else is catching up. You passed the inner threshold. You stepped through your own limits. That's what makes you dangerous now. You're not afraid to start again. You're not afraid to walk alone. You're not afraid of the unknown. Everything ahead of you will look different, not because the world changed, but because you did. That's the real shock. That's the message no one tells you. It's not about what happens to you. It's about what happens in you. And something did. So you've built peace in chaos. You've created silence in noise. You've chosen to trust without proof. That's alignment. That's discipline. And most importantly, that's spiritual maturity. Now the test becomes responsibility, not just for your future, but for how you carry the wisdom of your part. You don't forget it. You don't resent it. You respect it because it brought you here. So from this point forward, you walk differently. You respond differently. You live with purpose, not desperation. That's the result of the shift. You're not waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. The struggle didn't end you. So it introduced you to your real self, the one who doesn't flinch under pressure, the one who doesn't need validation, the one who knows exactly who they are because they built that identity from pain. This is a shocking message from God. You passed the pain. So now things move, doors open, peace returns, but not as a gift, as a reflection of the person you became. Don't go back. Don't doubt what's unfolding. You paid the price. You walked through the fire. You've earned the view on the other side. Now take it, own it, grow from it. Everything you thought you lost made space for everything you were meant to gain. The old you had to die. That part of you that doubted, feared, waited, betted, that part is gone. What's left is a warrior, calm, silent, focused, and ready. This is your moment, not because something around you shifted, but because the shift happened in you. The test is over. The pain is behind you. Now comes the transformation. And that's why the message is so clear far. You passed the pain. Now watch what I do. You looked at your reflection and didn't recognize yourself. The weight of everything you carried changed you. The pain stripped you down. It tore away the comfort, the illusions, the false layers, and what was left? Just you. Raw, honest, real. And this is the shocking message from God. You passed the pain. XS, you thought you were breaking. You thought you were being punished, but you weren't. You were being rebuilt, stronger, wiser, sharper. Life wasn't destroying you, it was upgrading you. Most people don't understand what pain really does. Pain doesn't just hurt, it reveals, it exposes weakness, it shatters ego. It burns away everything that doesn't belong. You weren't being broken, you were being cleaned inside, out. It just didn't feel like growth while you were going through it. But now you're seeing it clearly. Now you can understand why it had to happen that way. You had to let go of the old version of yourself, the one who needed validation. So the one who doubted everything, the one who clung to comfort. That version couldn't survive the path ahead, so pain stepped in. It did what nothing else could. It moved you, it changed your vision, it changed your behavior, it changed your spirit. So, and that's what transformation looks like. It's never gentle, it's never comfortable. It comes with fire. This is the Disha shocking message from God. You passed the pain. Yes, and because of that, you are not broken. You are rebuilt, rebuilt with clarity, rebuilt with purpose, rebuilt with silence in your mind and peace in your heart. You're not afraid of falling anymore because you've already risen from places most people wouldn't survive. That's not weakness. That's spiritual strength. So that's unshakable truth. You know now that you don't need to control everything. You know now that survival didn't depend on the world being easy. It depended on your discipline, your awareness, your ability to endure the worst without giving up the best in you. That's what pain taught you. This is not about pretending everything is fine. This is not about hiding scars. This is about owning the fact that you've been to the lowest places and you came back with something most people don't have: inner power. Power that isn't allowed, power that doesn't beg to be seen, power that stays calm while everything else shakes. You became that through your storms, through your nights, through your silence. And now that you've passed the pain, it's time to use it. Everything you lost taught you something. Every ending led to a new beginning. You don't look at life the same way anymore. You don't waste time. You don't chase what doesn't grow you. You've developed a new sense of awareness, a new level of respect for peace, a new kind of focus because of the pain, because of what it broke and what it built. Now, you no longer carry the same weight, not because life is easier, but because you've become stronger. You've rebuilt your inner foundation. The things that used to shake you now teach you. The emotions that used to trap you now move through you. The triggers that used to control you now mean nothing. This is the shocking message from God. You passed the pain. You're no longer in survival mode. You're awake, alert, grounded. And that means the world must respond to you differently now. When you are rebuilt, everything around you must shift. Your energy is different. Your words carry weight. Your silence speaks louder than most people's noise. You no longer beg for peace. You create it. You no longer run from problems. You face them. And most of all, you no longer fear pain. You respect it because it was pain that introduced you to your true self, the self that doesn't rely on outside approval, or the self that doesn't break under pressure, the self that knows when to move, when to wait, and when to let go. This version of you isn't confused, it's focused. That's what being rebuilt feels like. Thought you were losing everything, but you were actually gaining yourself. So don't go back. Don't try to return to who you were before the pain. That version is gone. And that's a blessing. You don't need to fix the past. You need to honor what it taught you, because the future isn't waiting for the old you. It's waiting for the one who passed the pain. You're not finished. This is just the beginning. But now you are prepared. You're not stepping into life with wounds. So you're stepping in with wisdom. You're not repeating the same lessons. You're building on what you've already survived. This is your shift. This is your turning point. And it's only possible because of one thing: you passed the pain. And now there's nothing stopping you from stepping into who you were always meant to become. You kept asking why nothing was changing. You kept wondering why, after everything you've been through, the breakthrough didn't come. You thought maybe something was wrong. Maybe the universe forgot you. Maybe God was silent. But the truth is very different. The truth is this: the moment you passed the pain, the moment you endured without breaking, everything began to shift. This is the Zeus shocking message from God: you passed the pain. Now watch what I do. S is things don't move just because you're tired, they move when you're ready. And readiness isn't about having a plan. It's about having a foundation. It's about being solid within. It's about passing the invisible tests, the ones no one sees but you. When life was painful and confusing, you stayed. When everything collapsed, you didn't. That's why it begins now. You don't receive power when you're begging. You receive power when you're built. And pain was the builder. Every setback, every disappointment, every lonely moment shaped you. You didn't break. You grew quietly, slowly, without knowing it. You became someone who no longer needs the storm to stop, because you learned how to stand inside it. This is a shocking message from God. You passed the pain. That was the condition. That was the agreement. Before doors could open, before blessings could reach you, you had to become someone who could carry them, not wish for them. Carry them. It's not enough to want more in life. You must become more. That's why the breakthrough took time, not because it wasn't coming, but because you weren't ready to hold it. Not yet. Life doesn't give you what you pray for. It gives you what you're prepared for. And preparation happens in silence, in discomfort, in pain. Most people ask for change, but run when it hurts. You didn't. You stayed. You felt every ounce of the pain and still kept your vision alive. Even when no one saw your fight, you didn't stop fighting. Even when you questioned everything, you still held on. And that is what made the difference. There is no growth without sacrifice. You sacrificed comfort. You sacrificed ease. You sacrificed the need to always feel good. And in return, you earned power, inner power, discipline, focus. Now you no longer chase peace. You are peace. You no longer hope for strength. You've become strong. You no longer wait for direction. You move with purpose. That's what the pain was about. This is the Zeya shocking message from God. You passed the pain. Now, everything begins not because something magical appears, but because your inner world has become magnetic. You attract different things now. You respond differently. You think, feel, and act from a higher place. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to explain. Your energy speaks, your silence teaches, and your actions show who you really are. You didn't become this person by reading about it. You became this person by surviving what was sent to break you. And now that you've passed that invisible line, life begins to open. Opportunities come. Support arrives, alignment happens. But all of this isn't the reward. It's the reflection. The world reflects who you've become. You passed the pain, so now life trusts you. Life knows you won't waste what's coming. You've been tested, and now you're trusted. Remember this: nothing moves outside until something shifts inside, and that shift already happened when you got up after the breakdown. when you stayed silent instead of reacting, when you chose discipline over distraction. That's when life took notice. That's when God whispered, "Now watch what I do." But don't make the mistake of thinking this means the end of pain. It doesn't. Pain will return. Challenges will come. The difference now is Zayu. You're not entering the next chapter as a victim. You're entering as a warrior. Not because you talk like one, but because you've proven it. The struggle gave you something permanent, not motivation, not inspiration, but transformation. It's built into your posture, your tone, your decisions. People can feel it. The ones who knew the old, you won't even recognize what you've become. That's what real change looks like. This is not the time to shrink. This is not the time to doubt. This is the time to move, to act, to walk forward with your head high, not because you're proud, but because you're clear. You know where you came from. You know what you survived. And you know who helped you make it through. This is this shocking message from God. You passed the pain, yes, us. So now move with power. Don't wait for the perfect moment. You are the moment. Don't wait for signs. You are the sign. The old you waited for life to change. The new you changes life by how you show up. Let everything that once made you weak now serve as proof of your strength. Let every past failure become a foundation for deeper mastery. You didn't come this far to question yourself. You came this far to lead yourself. So stop looking back. Stop doubting. The time has come. You've passed the test. You've done the inner work. And now life responds. You passed the pain. Now watch what happens next, Dark Sekas. You think the test is over. You think the pain is behind you. And in many ways it is. But this moment is not at the finish line. It's the beginning of the reveal. This is the shocking message from God. You passed the pain, Dax. And now that you've survived what was meant to break you, what comes next will demand even more from you, but from a different place inside you. You've reached a new level, and with it comes a new kind of responsibility. Before, you were surviving. Now, you are shaping. Before, you were reacting. Now, you are creating. The test wasn't just about pain. It was about preparation for what's coming next, and what's coming next will require all of you. This is not a reward. It's a calling. You didn't just pass a stage in life. You crossed into a new version of yourself. The version that doesn't panic when things go silent. The version that doesn't collapse under pressure. The version that doesn't wait for permission to move. You've learned how to walk through darkness. Now you must walk with light and not be blinded by it. The real danger now is not failure, it's comfort. You went through so much just to stand here. But don't make the mistake of thinking this is the end. It's not. This is the part where life begins to show you why the pain was necessary. But if you stop here, if you pause to celebrate too long, you'll miss what this moment is really about. You pass the pain. I pass. But can you hold the blessing? Can you stay disciplined when things go well? Can you remain focused when everything you prayed for finally starts to arrive? Most people don't lose because of hardship. They lose because of comfort. They forget who they became during the struggle. Don't forget, this is your beginning, not your reward. The pain brought clarity. It brought silence. It brought strength. Now you must bring action, movement, purpose. Every step forward from here should carry the lessons of everything behind you. The scars were not for decoration. They are reminders. Every moment of suffering gave you insight. Now you must use it. This is the Yasa shocking message from God. You passed the pain now. So now, what do you do with it? You walk with intention. You move without fear. You trust without overthinking. You build without seeking applause. You lead, not just others, but yourself. Especially on the days when motivation fades and no one is watching. That's the difference now. You don't need external energy to continue. You have your own. You've seen what life looks like at the bottom. You've lived through confusion. You've carried heaviness no one saw. And still you rose quietly. That kind of rise is not normal. That kind of rise means something. That's why this moment carries so much weight, not because you made it, but because of who you became to get here. Don't be distracted by comfort. Comfort is temporary, growth is permanent. The world needs your next level. The people around you need your strength, your insight, your clarity. But none of that will matter if you go back to playing small. You didn't pass the pain to sit still. You pass the pain to lead. Every step from here is a choice to keep walking, to keep growing, to keep evolving. This path doesn't end, it only deepens. And now, so you're strong enough to handle it. You've proven that you can carry weight. So life will give you more, not to crush you, but to complete you. Responsibility is the gift that follows growth. Power is not given to those who wish, it's given to those who are ready. And this is that moment. The message is clear. The process was hard, but now everything starts to reveal itself. You're not who you were. You've outgrown your old habits. You've silenced your old doubts. You've buried your old limits. So why live like they still exist? Why return to patterns that no longer serve you? This is not a season of reflection. This is a season of action. The foundation is laid. The tools are in your hands. You pass the paint off. That means the inner war has already been won. Now comes the outer manifestation. Now comes the reveal. And it won't come all at once. It'll come in pieces, in people, in places, in moments. But you'll know it when it happens. Because you'll feel peace, you'll feel clarity, you'll feel alignment. But only if you keep walking. This is not the time to relax. This is the time to rise, to speak when it's uncomfortable, to act when it's uncertain, to trust when it's unclear. You're not starting from nothing. You're starting from power, from purpose, from a deeper truth that pain carved into your being. This is the shocking message from God. You passed the pain. Now watch what I do thou. But remember, what comes next depends on how you move now. You were shaped by fire. So don't move like someone afraid to get burned. Move like someone who knows the heat, who walked through it and survived. This is your shift. Don't waste it.